So, all right, that's enough for me for the time being. Francisco has been working on his electric Pajero. We have seen that in previous meetings where he brought in his battery. He brought in on a trailer his battery container. He's brought in. He's doing a lot of this stuff himself, so I think it's fantastic, and it's not some amateur job either. It's really, really good. We're just going to bring up some pictures, and I'll hand you over to Francisco.
So we'll move up a little bit. So there's some pictures of the BMS, which I finally got working. I put it on some battery at home, and it's been sort of balancing the batteries for about 2 or 3 months already. So the system of shoveling the energy between all the different cells seems to be working fine, because I got some second-hand Nissan Leaf cells for battery storage. They all came out of different packs, so they're not the same capacity, and it seems to maintain the balance of the cells well all the way through. So as it charges or discharges, it keeps balancing the cells, which means that you don't have to wait until it gets to top charge or auto charge. Actually, is that? Yeah, keep going, because I think.
So there we can see the actual battery cooling, the battery cells with the cooling. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the.
So you might just give an overview, mate.
The batteries that I'm making are going to be water cooled. The way that I've made them, I'm using pouch cells, and there's a plate in between each pouch, and there's a water tube that runs between each of the cells. So in terms of cooling, it's actually probably definitely it's a lot better than a Tesla battery. I'm not sure how the other ones compare, but at 4C, I've actually tested it at 2C, and when the batteries are discharging at 2C, I can have a temperature difference between the surface of the cell and the water of 5 degrees C. So that means that if I kept my water at, say, 25 degrees C, then the cell temperature would be about 30 degrees if I was discharging it at 2C, which means discharge the battery in half an hour, which is, you'll never do it in a car. So from that point of view, the cooling is reasonably good. Like, you'll never be able to overheat it.
Is that a challenge, or?
Yeah, I've already tested it. So I've already put.
I bagged first drive.
I've already put a continuous load on the cells that is equivalent to discharging the cells at 2C. So it basically emptied the battery in 30 minutes, and the batteries never got to 35 degrees. So I think the water temperature it was in sort of winter, so it was a bit cold. So the water started about 20 degrees, and so obviously the cells were about 25 degrees, even with 2C being discharged. So keep going down. I think it's the back. Keep going down until you get to the next picture.
What's 2C in current?
In this one, well, it's let me think. It's got 3 pouches, so it's about 240 amps.
I nearly lost the live stream.
It should be. No, sorry. It's 180 amp for 1C, so it will be about 360 amps. So when I actually did the discharge, I was doing 400 amps.
4%.
I've installed electric power steering on the Pajero. So I got the power steering out of a Toyota, I don't know exactly what. A friend of mine actually gave me the power steering rack. So I've installed that, so now it's got power steering. So it's much easier to turn. So there's no need for a pump. Keep going there. Now I've been building the inverter, and this is one of the first tests where I was actually running the inverter at more or less full current, which was 400 amps, and that's the bus voltage. I'm not really sure if this really makes a lot of sense unless you really know electronics. So if you keep going further.
Give us the layman terms, mate.
Basically, this is actually showing you how well how to put it, how good the capacitor and the bus inductance is. So obviously, the better it is, the lower the voltage spikes that you're going to get. So this is actually, I was basically going through all the signals to make sure that everything was working correctly. If you keep going further down, I actually got into that point here, which is actually the blue line is actually the bus capacitor voltage. So you can see a dip in the when the transistor turns on, and what this is caused by is the freewheeling diode on the other transistor. So what happens is that when the transistors when the freewheeling diode on one transistor is conducting current, before you can actually get it to turn off, you have to empty the stored charge in the diode. So what is happening in here is that the transistor on the other side is turning on too fast. So then obviously it tries to draw, it is basically turning on into a short circuit.
I'll get that.
So if you keep going further down, so what I did was I actually slowed down the gate drive on the transistor.
Thanks, all right.
I think you might have to go a little bit further. So the bottom one here is the one where I've actually made the transistor turn on slower so that it basically doesn't try to put so much current flowing through the diode. So it's basically to reduce the stress. So I think on this case we're getting about, I think it's about a 50 volt, I think it was a 50 volt drop. So the spikes are actually around about 50 volts, which means that I should be able to run very close to the capacity to the voltage rating of the capacitor. So if you keep going down, there's a video there for an acceleration test. I'm not sure if you can actually play it.
Give it a go.
There's no audio.
That's all right.
So obviously it's only running with one motor, with the rear motor, and basically in this case it's floored. And according to the estimates, once it's got the two motors, it should actually do 0 to 100 in 4 seconds.
How come you weren't test driving that?
Because I was taking the video. Anyway, so I've already got it. I've already tested the motor. This is before it was rewound. So basically, what would actually happen with the original motor is that it would top out to about 60 kilometers an hour. So at that point, then you start dropping torque. So I've actually rewound one of the motors already. So the first idea was, generally the way you rewind a motor is you make the coils like, outside and then you put them inside the motor. So I made a former and I made the coils, and then if you go a little bit further down, I tried to put it in and it didn't actually work very well. So because I couldn't get everything to go into the right place. So then later on I came up with a different idea. So if you go back, go further down. So I took all the windings out, and then if you keep going further, I used a different method to put the coils in that turned out to be a lot easier. It was much quicker to put the windings in. So that's just one coil. Now, one of the issues that I had with the motor is that I'm actually using 2 transistor packs. So I'm using the motor as the sharing resistor for the transistor pack so that I can actually put 2 in parallel and still get full current from each pack. So what I've actually done is I've actually put 2 windings that are supposed to be in parallel, and each winding is driven by one transistor pack. So what I actually needed to do is to make sure that the 2 windings, the positive of the 2 windings comes out on the same slot. So what it means is that half of the motor has to be wound in one direction and the other half of the motor has to be wound in reverse, so that you don't end up with, so for example, if you see where the one winding comes in and then the other end comes out on the opposite side of the motor, if I kept the second winding in the same direction, then my input would be where that winding ends, and the output would come out in here on the side. So then they would be back to front, so which means that I would have to run a wire all the way from the back of the motor to the front. So if you go to the next one, so basically what I've done is the left side half of the motor is wound in one direction, and then the right half of the motor is wound in reverse. So you can actually see that on the top the two come in on the same spot, but the bottom ones actually end up on different places. So the bottom ones are actually the end of the winding, which is going to be connected together as a neutral. So this one here has actually got one phase wound with both sides on the whole way around. So the motor is actually an 8-pole motor, which means that it's got eight coils all the way around. And what I've actually done is originally it had 4 coils, and each coil had 5 turns. So I needed to have roughly half the voltage. So the problem was then I ended up with 2.5 turns. So what I decided to do was, instead of putting 2.5 turns, I decided to put 2 turns. And then if I put the 2 windings in series, instead of having 4 windings in parallel, then what I'm doing now is I'm putting 2 windings in series of 1 turn each. So that gives me the equivalent of 2 turns. And then another winding, another set, which is another 2 windings in series. So I end up with two windings in parallel that are equivalent to having 2 turns compared to what the original one was. I mean, maybe it's not explaining it very well, but if you keep going further.
It's heavy going.
So that one I think is got 2 phases wound, and if you keep going, I think there's another one with, go to the next page. Okay. So that one's got all the 3 phases all put in. So you can see on the top there is the 3 wires that come out with 2 strands, or 2 groups, and on the bottom left is the 3 windings. All those ones got connected together, and then on the other side there's another 3. So if you keep going further, so that's a view from the other side of the motor, and keep going on to the next one. So this is after putting the cover back on, just to check and make sure that I got all my wires in the right place. So you can see the transistor pack. You can see at the top they've got the three terminals, and then there's 3 wires that come out roughly where the 3 contacts come out from the pack. So if you keep going further, so this is putting the little wedges in the middle to make sure that the wires don't come out. So I was sort of putting them through, and then if you go on to the next picture, that's with all of the wedges put in. In the next one, this is where all the windings already tied up from the view from the back, and then view from the front. I didn't actually put the enamel yet because I wasn't really sure if it was going to work. So I had to basically assemble everything, put all the terminals, and then put the rotor and then spin it. And to confirm that in actual fact I have actually got everything the right way around, right? So if you go on to the next one, this is actually with the wires coming out that go into the transistor pack. So you can see at the top there is 1 transistor pack, and at the bottom there's another transistor pack. And then one winding goes onto the one set of windings goes onto the top pack, and the other one goes onto the bottom. The blue parts are actually the current transducers. And then this side view. So if you keep going further down, now what I actually did was I took the original motor and then I spun it to 1000 RPM using a cordless drill. So I basically put a screw on the shaft and then got the cordless drill spinning so that I could actually measure the back EMF. So this is the original motor. So at 1000 RPM I'm getting 113 volts. So and you can see it's a reasonably good sine wave. Now this is the rewound motor. Now when I rewound the motor, I wound it in a slightly different way to what the original one was. So there's basically two ways of winding the motor. One is called full pitch, in which, for example, if you've got, you might have say 48 slots and you've got 8 poles. So then each pole will actually use up 6 slots. So if you put your winding going around 6 slots, then you use up the magnetic field a little bit better, but you get more harmonics on the back EMF. So you get 5th and 3rd harmonics, which is the reason why you see the little lamp on the peak of the sine wave. Now, if you go back to the other one, you can see this one gives you a really nice sine wave because it's got the winding is called short pitch. So instead of actually picking 6 slots, it actually the winding only goes around 5 slots. So the advantage is that you get better harmonics, but the disadvantage is that you use a little bit less of the magnetic field that the magnets produce. Therefore, you get a slightly lower torque. But anyway, so slight difference. So on the bottom one, you can see the frequency is 74 hertz, and the bottom one is 73. So it's around about 1,000 RPM for both. And the top one is 113 volts, and the bottom one is 46 volts or something like that. So it's basically the 2.5 to 1 ratio. So basically the winding means the winding is actually wound correctly. I'm getting the expected back EMF that I was planning on. So if you keep going to the next one. Now I had a Hyper 9 and then I thought, I wonder what it looks like. So I went and spun the motor and put oscilloscope, and that's what you get. So obviously not very nice. But anyway, so that's just as I thought as a curiosity. If you go on to the next one, so that's a Hyper 9, and that's the other my motor with the rewound bits and the inverter on the back. Now the last thing that I needed to test was to see if the windings were actually, that idea of winding half the motor in reverse was actually going to work correctly. So what I actually did was I put all the I put 2 of the ends on 2 windings connected in parallel, and then left the other 2 endings that were supposed to be in parallel. I left them open circuit, and then I put the oscilloscope across them, and then spun the motor. So if everything was correct, then there should be 0 volts across that as the motor spun. So if you go on to the next picture, you can see I got my 0 volts, so that means that I didn't stuff up the winding. So all the idea worked and everything is according to what I was expected. Now if you keep going further, I've got a video here of the motor being spun. So this is basically testing it with the power stage connected to the back, and running the logic board, which I'm actually still working on. So I've got an SAME 70 demo board, which is this here. So I've been using that for now, just to make sure that I've got all the wires in the right place, all the peripherals work. Unfortunately, that chip is actually very difficult to use because there is no documentation on the API. The data sheet is not particularly clear. So it's been a lot of trial and error. There's functions that I know that the chip has, but I have no idea how to turn them on. And you're supposed to use their own APIs, which have no documentation whatsoever. So I basically had to go through the code and go all the way down to the point where it actually writes to the register to find out what other register it's got and what the variables are. And then I got to sit there and try different values to see what it actually does. So anyway, eventually I got that bit working. So so far, that's how far I've got. So the next step is going to be to put in to make a board that has got all of the sensors and all of the bits with a connector that connects to that SAME board, and make sure that I've got all the wires in and all the pins are actually correct before I actually make a board with the SAME on it.
Okay, so how long until we're seeing
a driving one?
Yeah.
Well,
how long till we see like the next steps?
Well, probably I'm gonna get some boards maybe maybe this Friday or early next week. So I might be able to bring the motor with something next meeting, and you can basically see it spinning. Okay, so
that'll be good.
I'll probably bring two 48-volt batteries or something like that to power it, so you'll be able to spin it up and slow it down. There's a lot of little details that are making life difficult. One of the issues that I've got at the moment is how to get the wires and the pipes that go on the inverter coming out of the motor. And the main reason is that there's a can type cover that goes on the back, but the pipes and the wires actually come in the middle. So I haven't come up with a good idea on how to get them to come out through the can without, you know, and still being watertight and neat and easy and be able to pull it apart easily and all that. So that's one of the bits that I'm still not really sure how I'm going to solve yet, but I guess eventually we'll get there.
Okay. All right, excellent. That was fantastic. Round of applause. Thank you very much, Francisco. Okay.
I have a long history in building lightweight high-performance motor yachts up to 37 metres. Since I've done those, I've got an interest in putting the technology, improving technology back into a bus, a city bus. You can pull the bus up through. Big problem with electric buses, and not many people will admit it, is weight. The weight is such a problem that you get a bus and you can only put 50 passengers in it because it's overweight then. And another thing with weight, the funny quirky thing is, when they originally worked out the gross weight of a bus based on passenger weight, passengers' weights was always worked out at 65 or 69 kilos per person, but it's over the years it's now become 72 kilos for a woman, 86 kilos for a man. So quite often the buses in Brisbane during peak hour
So you come a bit closer to this, yeah.
are overweight. So what they're introducing is counting passenger numbers to try and stop this. This is just on your diesel bus. But when you get into an electric bus, you've got all the batteries, they're mostly lithium ion, and a typical electric bus, 12 metres, like this one here, will weigh 12,900 kilos. You can only put 50 people in it. So city transport departments are investing the best part of $1 million in a new electric bus, which is great, but it only does half the job. So they find when they test and trial these buses, they'll put them on a bus route that a diesel bus, one diesel bus does that route. They end up putting 2 electric buses on that route to do the same job. And it's coming down to the weight, and the biggest weight are the batteries.
Why is the weight an issue? Is it the brakes that the bus uses to slow down? Is that the main concern, or?
That is part of it. The weight is a big issue because they're driving out and crushing up all the bitumen.
Okay.
So
the impact on the roads is the weight issue?
Yes, and your payload is reduced. You only got half a payload. So you just spend best part of $1 million and you can only put half the passengers on. So my objective was to design a bus body. Now, this bus body here, you'll see up there, you probably can't read it, but it's a lightweight, high-strength frameless bus body, non-reliant on coal or the production of steel. Graham can probably tell us what it's made of.
Carbon fibre?
Yes, it'd be carbon fibre on the basis it's a composite construction. A bit like a Formula One racing car, but not as high tech.
Are you using a polycore, are you?
Are you using a polycore?
Yeah, using a foam core, high density foam core. E-glass construction on either side. And by doing that, a typical steel body only weighs 3,500 kilos. This body's going to come in probably less than 2,000 kilos. And by using li-ion, nickel, magnesium, cobalt batteries, you can save another 1,000 kilos compared to if you use lithium-ion batteries. They're another 1,000 kilos. 1,000 kilos more. The bus at the moment is designed around a 330 kilowatt hour battery pack. That's probably, can you pull up the spreadsheet?
What range is that good for?
We're going to see in a minute. Basically, I was looking at the ranges on all the other vehicles, and they're doing 17 kilowatt hours to 100 kilometres.
Right.
I wish. I get 1.4 kilometres to the kilowatt hour.
How much was that, sorry?
1.4 kilometres
Okay.
to a kilowatt hour.
Can't do the maths in my head on that one.
You can't do the maths on that. It'll basically do
70 kilowatts per 100 kilometres. What's the range? I can divide by 300 by your range.
the range is about 350 kilometres on the first battery
Okay,
pack.
so so maybe like 85 kilowatt hours per 100.
I haven't worked it out. No one works it out that in the buses, yeah, in the buses they usually work out
Kilowatts per kilometre.
that's an
Oh, sorry,
efficiency.
kilometres per kilowatt hour.
Kilometres per kilowatt hour
Okay.
is an efficiency rating.
Yeah.
Can you scroll up? There we go. And the 330 kilowatt battery pack, 348 kilometres. This battery pack, the 330 kilowatt battery pack, is about 300 kilos more than a normal diesel engine gearbox exhaust system. Then the wheels, the drivetrains and
You
the
guys
wheels.
can talk about this after the presentation, okay?
No, he's got. I watched your presentation before, Francisco, and it's pretty impressive, mate. I'm not from that field.
Maybe you can do the windings for his bus.
Well, I'm trying to get in. There's a 435 kilowatt battery pack I'm working on.
I'd like that in the Kona. Would that fit?
About batteries fitting is the limiting thing. To go to 435 kilowatts, I'm actually looking, or I have to take out a couple of seats to get the batteries, get enough battery packs in there. I really need, if I could get batteries with a 10% more energy, it'd be easy to fit it all in.
I think I'll talk to you about the batteries because I think mine will probably fix your problem.
Yeah. So how close are you to getting this project?
Not very close at all.
Okay. Is this just a concept stage, is it?
Yes, development stage.
Development stage,
It's
okay.
been developed in 3D. It's ready to go to have finite element analysis. That's where they put it in the computer and they test it with different stresses and forces. Then it's got to go to the composite engineer. I'll show him what I've got, how I intend to make it,
Okay.
and he will do the test and stress on that and design the lamination layout.
Okay.
That's where I'm up to now. It's very close to going into being able to be or have the prototype produced.
Okay. Excellent. How many watts can you fit under a passenger seat? Because there's nothing in the space directly under a passenger seat.
That's correct. I've got.
But you'd have to get the
6.
passengers down, wouldn't you? Because the weight would... But, I mean, you think about a bus, the people are sitting up high, so you'd want the battery down.
I just want to pull you up on that. About 10 years ago, we all moved to full flat floor buses, which is good for passengers, good for senior people. But now with the converted steel buses, they're going back to, well, you walk in here and then you step up there and then you step up there to accommodate this. But in answering your question, behind the front wheels, I've got an elevated platform there. I can get 6 battery modules in there.
How much are the kilowatts?
They're 4.1 kilowatts per module.
25.
Yeah.
25 hours.
Hours. And the G is in hours.
But that's only part of the whole thing. But another thing
Hours.
here, on the range, you hear about a range of a bus that weighs 12,700 kilos, and they say it does 330 kilometres. But if you turn your air conditioner on,
Yeah.
that's 30% of your distance out the window. This is why we got to get the weight down to compensate for stuff like that.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you very
Am I
much.
Too long?
Yeah, no, that's it. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Peter.
Fantastic. Hello, everyone. Man, there's some serious designing going on in this room tonight. I'm not going to be designing anything, although we've already sort of done that tonight. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a project that myself, a couple of other people, and the president of AEVA Australia have put together to help educate. So I think one of the things that we like to do here in AEVA when we're out in the ether is educate about EVs, educate about eco, and try and get a bit of change in society. So I put together a project called Idle Off. If you want to pop hang on, before we go there, I'll go with this bit. So how often, or has anybody been out and about and seen ICE vehicles idling in car parks, in queues, at schools, all that sort of stuff? And what have you thought? Is that a good thing?
Drives you batty.
Pretty bad, right? Drives you batty, right, Dave? So I'm on the same level.
Especially when people just idle the car from having the air conditioner on.
Air conditioning, right? Okay, it's a hot country, but like seriously, let's get ourselves sorted. So that particular issue has lots of impacts. It kills people. The pollution from vehicles is a greater killer than that of car accidents. We've seen an increase in premature babies and death and infant mortality. You go again. We've got it impacts children at a greater rate than it does adults because of developing lungs. You go again. And it has been banned in a number of countries around the world, particularly places like New York and New Jersey. They have fines for idling vehicles greater than 2 minutes in duration. And if you dob that fine in and that person gets fined, you get 25% of the fine. There's a whole dobbing act. There's people making livelihoods out of this in North America. So it's a thing. It hurts people. Governments have realised that around the world and are putting things in place. But yet people still do it here in Australia. And if we go on, it also causes particularly respiratory issues, but also pulmonary issues. And so it really does impact on the world at large. And health costs of pollution is significant. Recently did a piece of work that looked at the oldest of trucks and the cost of the pollutants that come out of particularly older trucks, but also out of cars, turns into health costs. The different types of pollution turns into an impact on our health system and costs many more cents per kilometre than the fuel that they use to drive those vehicles in health costs. So, and paper will be published in about a month's time. So, it's a big deal. If we go to the next slide, we've put together as a group of 4 of us a number of education tools, worksheets and so on that are directed at high school kids, 7, 8 and 9, year 7, 8 and 9, where their teachers can use these tools to learn a little bit more about what are transport emissions, understand the impacts of air quality and how to measure air quality, and then also understand how to communicate this want for change, this change to idling behaviour, and basically influencing their parents to not idle in queues at schools. So we put this all together, and we've got this. There's a website that pulls this all together, and really basically to communicate, to educate, and hopefully slowly turn the needle on this issue We all don't like it, others don't like it, and in time we're hoping that, and we're expecting that the idling of vehicles will be akin to smoking, you know, and that's not cool. And you know, if my kids see people smoke these days, they point it out. You know, when I was a kid, that wasn't a thing. So we've seen a change over this 34 years, and we're hoping that we will see also a change, and that will drive people's thoughts towards EVs. So go ahead. We've done this piece of work as a group of individuals who are interested and done it in our own time, but also done it as part of our company. I reckon that's just died. What do I need to do? Nothing? Something? That stopped. Okay. Well, I'll speak up a little bit. It's got lights, but there's no cameras in action.
It's a timer over there.
Gotcha.
On to it, Graham.
So there we go. So as a lead organisation, as part of this, through Chris Nash, the national president, AEVA has put forth to endorse and support and help market the availability of this program. We're continuing to get more endorsements from leading health advocacy organisations like Doctors for the Environment Australia and the Lung Foundation. We'll also get the Thoracic Sound Foundation and a number of others to get on board behind this from a medical point of view, because doctors get it and they see it. And one of our team members, Claire, she's a researcher, she's an ex-pharmacist who started to see people, young people, getting lung cancer. And she started to investigate, why are they seeing lung cancer? They've never smoked, never been exposed to smoking, there's no third-party smoking in those people's lives, but actually the inner city livers, inner city dwellers, that end up basically getting pollution-based lung cancer. So that drove her to turn into a researcher, and she's now currently researching further into the effects of air pollution from internal combustion engines on the human thoracic system. So we've got a number of other supporters, including and what we're looking for next is your support, the community support, AEVA's support. So nationally, we're looking for folks who are particularly driven by this and interested in this to help us spread that word and use the site, use the resources that we've put together to go to the next slide to help us out. So there's sort of two angles to this. We'd like to get this product, which we launched only a couple of weeks ago, you might have seen it started to come out in some pieces in the Driven, and we'll do one in Renewal Economy very soon. And other platforms, so some TV that we think we'd be able to do on this soon, to get this out to schools. And we're looking for some pilot schools who are particularly environmentally interested, and maybe some teachers who are also interested in putting this forward with their students, to be able to test out the sheets, make sure it works, to be able to start spreading the word and see if we need to tweak or add or even assist them a little further. So that's one thing. So if you're in education, or you know someone who is, if you're tied to a school that you think might be really interested in this as a pilot program, then please do grab me, get in touch, make some contact, that sort of one. And then two, from an AEVA point of view, we're really keen to get advocates, people who are here that would like to be a bit of an ambassador for this as well. The other three are based in Melbourne. I'm based in Brisbane, and we don't have anybody else around the country. So we want to continue to gather ambassadors who are particularly interested in this and maybe want to take it forward, and also have access to organisations that might find this particular program an interesting sponsorship opportunity. So if you have any thoughts around that, so it's all been funded by one of the members who works and runs EV Up, which is a charging equipment provider, Evolution. We've seen that there as well. So they've basically funded this so far, but we're looking, and that's got us to where we are, but we're looking for more support that will help us to take that a little bit further. So if you've got any ideas on where we might be able to find support for this program to help build flyers, to get more work out there, to get more message out there, we're looking for that as well. So last line. If you've got any questions, you can catch me, Nathan, You can write to hello@idleoff, but I encourage you all to have a little bit of a look at the idleoff.com.au website, which will give you complete access to all the product. You know, there's no, it's completely free. It's open access. It's about getting that information out there. Okay. Any questions?
Is there any reason why you wouldn't go below year 7?
Yeah, Dave. The question for those on the phone was any reason why we wouldn't go lower than that? So that's an opportunity for expansion to start with. We've had a look at where to pitch initially, and with curriculum at the top end, it's pretty set, and you've got exams and stuff, so it's a pretty hectic time in there. Those middle years, that middle high school, early high school, it's a time for exploration and understanding things, so that works pretty well. We work with some teachers to help develop this. I've got kids in primary school. I'd like to see something happen in my primary school as well. I think that's an opportunity for exploration, but the kids in those sorts of years, they understand concepts, but doing experiments and so on can become more challenging. But we'd like to in time.
I think one of the advantages of getting the little kids is that they will go and tell their parents, look, this is actually doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And they're not afraid of going and telling their parents.
That's right, that's right.
The ones from high school, they might not actually be saying.
I've certainly seen high school kids do the same. Like when I was at Tesla, there was plenty of those kids who were coming through and they were forming their own opinions and particularly becoming active in the environmental space, you know, the whole Greta thing and everything else. It's quite an active space. As littler kids, they understand the concepts and they'll certainly bug you. I mean, mine do. But beyond that, you're starting to get to a space. So that's why we pitched it first, because we think we're going to get the best cut through in those sorts of high schools.
How long does this program actually take? Is it a one-off thing that goes for half an hour or is it a series?
Yeah, sure. So the question is, how long does the program take? Each of the worksheets, which you can download on the website and go through, you could get a bit of an idea that they probably take a lesson or two. There's an experiment there about measuring air quality, and it's by using a particular way of capturing basically dust and dirt from the sky, you know, PM, a particular matter. And that's like a week-long program. You leave set it out for a week, go back to it, pick it up, see what it looks like, and then look at the results. So they're varying times. There are a lesson or two. They're the sorts of things that a science teacher or a geography teacher might dip into and use as a way to spice up their world. And teachers are always looking for. My wife's a teacher. She's always looking for interesting ways of bringing the curriculum to life. So that's what they're doing there.
Okay.
One more.
Last one.
This is really awesome. Have you thought about using this? In fact, one of the questions I wanted to ask everyone else here tonight was, like, how do we go about combating the new, the EVs aren't paying the fuel tax, so we've got to put the tax on them now, and instead sort of flip that on its head and say, actually, EVs are reducing your costs of the health system and all that. Which we have a research report, but we need a way to get it into people's heads.
Yeah.
It's not computational.
Yeah, look, it's a challenge for those people online very quickly. How can we combat the challenges around the want for road user charging as a way to recuperate, the lost fuel excise, which never gets spent on roads anyway. So the challenge here is about education. My personal belief, having studied this space for the last 3 or 4 years, particularly heavily, is education is everything in the EV space, including dealing with the costs. I think this is an opportunity to bring forth the concept of people who get hurt, people get sick, people die from this stuff. That then means money. The health system is expensive, and that coupled with lots of other work that's going on to try and overcome the cost of health, or to internalise the cost of health to the cost of driving around. That's a piece of work that we work on elsewhere. It starts with education. Okay.
And the idling and using it because people can probably accept maybe they don't need either, but rather than just stop driving your ice car, you get some.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Because you don't need to idle because it does it all very quietly without any of that, very, very cheaply. So look, we did this out of passion. I work in EV consulting, supporting government transition to governments and fleets transition to electric vehicles. Other people all work in either AEVA with Chris, work in research, or work in providing charging equipment. We're all passionate about this. This is a little side project about trying to get some education out there. So, as I said before, if you're interested in, if you've got an idea about how we might be able to pilot this a little bit with a local school, I'm more than happy to engage with them on your behalf if you like, or find somebody who might be interested in helping us expand it from a funding point of view, or even an energy point of view. If you've got, if there's a teacher out there that's in this audience that wants to get behind this and put a little bit more into it, or help us tweak it, make it even better, we're all up for that.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you very much, Nathan. I'll try and... You've all seen Graham before, okay? So.
Okay. So, firstly, where did this come from? This particular motor came from El Mofo down in Newcastle. They were doing some, or Newcastle or some people keep reminding me. They do a lot of performance stuff, and they had this on the test bench, and they ran it up to 18,000 RPM, and apparently the contactor tripped, which meant that it had a huge EMF problem. And so we got the gear sets out of them, so that we could have a bit of a mess around and see if we can just make up 2 new gears to it to change the ratio. We don't want to change the differential, but we want to change the output drive shaft. So those are the 2 that we'll be changing. So we wanted to see how this thing worked. And look, in terms of mechanically, it's not a very complex bit of gear.
Can you hold this?
18,000 RPM.
Can you hold this?
Not particularly fast when I'm trying that out. So the engine they talk about, the motor they talk about is the water cooled. Effectively, that's right. The water's run through an intercooler. The intercooler goes on top of a transmission here. The oil in this transmission is run through that intercooler.
Thanks, mate.
So water cools the oil, and the oil is run through, and it's all very interesting. It has a little, you can see it there, a little oil pump. And that's driven by the crown wheel, which is not here because it's part of the differential, which is the way being worked on for the Windsor pit. The differential, by the way, is a pretty serious bit of gear. It's very strong. So this oil pump here scavenges oil from the crankcase, if you like, and that runs it up here, and it splashes it through here onto the gear set. So this main shaft coming out, which sits inside the armature, will run up to 18,000 RPM. At that speed, you've really got to lubricate the thing, and your bearing just sits just on the other side of it. This is all exceptionally well made. So the oil then, apart from being splashed onto that final drive gear, comes through and goes into the entire motor field coil area. So the whole end, the motor is cooled basically by the oil, which is cooled by the water intercooler. Great idea. If you want to improve it, I don't think it would be too hard to make a bigger intercooler, so you could run more water through it, so to speak. So, as I said, that's the armature main shaft. It presses into here. We put it in a 20-ton press to press it out. It should press back in, no problem at all. That's the armature there, and the field coils, and they're very, very heavy. I wouldn't want to pick up the 2 together. I can just pick this up and I can just pick that up. That's really it. There's not a great deal to these motors. I think it's brilliant that they put everything into the one package. To talk to the controller, you need a Tesla car, or alternatively, I call it a patch, but there is another controller board that you can buy that you just have to hook up maybe a Prius accelerator pedal or something like that to it, and that'll make the engine go. There are far more complicated ones as well. For what we're going to do, we're just going to use a simple, trying to think what the term is, where you can just download the plans and make it yourself, open source. So Francesco again is going to help me with that and get this thing going. Apart from that, there's not much else I can tell you. Come up, have a look, have a feel, pick it up, whatever you want to do. Come and ask us questions. We may know the answer, we may not. And I'll keep you as informed as to when we get the drag car on the road. Maybe when we go out to race it. See if Anyone wants to come out and see me make a fool of myself? How's that? Okay. All right, thank you very much. Any questions?
Any questions, anyone?
All straightforward?
All right.
I thought it was.
Graham, could you spend a couple of minutes telling us about putting, upgrading the IME battery pack?
I was going to save that for another night, but I'll give you a quick rundown. So the idea is that we found that the current crop of NCM cells have twice the capacity that the original NCM cells had, that it's Mitsubishi IME had. So basically, for the same size cell, we actually double the amount of energy capacity. So it seemed like a good idea to follow this bit of research and try to find out, A, where we get someone, basically kind of manufacturer, into doing it on a small volume, which wasn't easy. And they're happy to make more for us if it's pretty successful. So we replaced all 88 cells inside that IME pack with the high capacity cell. Now, a good set of IME cells would give you something like about 100 to 120k range. I think Mitsubishi tell you some other figure, but let's not go there.
Brand spanking new.
160 or some rubbish. I don't think anybody would have got that. What do you get out of yours, Kevin?
Oh, it's going down. It's,
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, come see me grab some batteries. Anyway, so the idea is we've got all these IMEs and mini cabs and all sorts of things, and these are the same batteries, I believe, as the Outlander. We're seeing a lot of people with battery degradation, where they're looking at a car that's worth a diddly squat, needs a new set of cells. Do they invest in the manufacturer ones, which are new old stock, let's face it, they were made many years ago, and I think that price is about $11,000 or $12,000. We're trying to come in at somewhere around under 16 if we can, and give them double the range. So it's going to upcycle the cars where we're coming from. Why spend a big bunch of money on a car, just have the same range it had when it left the factory, and maybe we can double that range. And if we got a 200k range, in the IMEs have the DC fast charging, they got the Type 1 AC charging, and you can get your little plug in the wall. So, I mean, they're a great vehicle to be upgraded, and that's what we're going to start with that. And hopefully next year we can start looking at the Nissan Leaf cells and upgrading those as well. So, but what I'll do is in future meetings, we've got one we're doing at the moment. It's just been trying out patients, or the limit of our medication, one or the other. So we're slowly getting there, working out how we've got to process the cells, how we've got to install them, how the actual onboard charger and balancing system and battery management all works. It's all very screwy to me, but so we're just getting it all organised. So to give you an idea, we had the pack out 7 times so far. So just to try to work out the process. Hopefully when we finish this, every step of the way we've learned something positive. So the next one we do, which will also be one of our own sort of thing, we'll do the whole thing with the correct steps in the correct order, and hopefully it's a matter of pull it out, put the cells in, do the electronics that we have to do, put it all back together and drive the car. Hopefully we get it to that stage. So once we get to that stage, then we'll start taking orders, but that's where we're at now. So next meeting I'll bring a bit of video footage and a bit more talk on. Hopefully I'll have the first car with the 200k range. Okay? Alright?
Alright.
Have you managed to get into the software on the IMEs at all?
Yeah, we're having a bit of luck there. We find that the scan tool, for those who don't know much about Mitsubishi's, they have their own factory scan tool, and it's called an MUT3, which is called a MUT3. And that seems to be all you need to be able to talk to the onboard computer and body management and all the rest of it. But we found that in actual fact a lot of the aftermarket scan tools do exactly the same thing. It's just worded differently, and you've got to sit down and work out what each of these functions do. And I mean, there was one stage there, I think we spent 3 days trying to work out how to do something, and then we sort of read 3 pages literally on the screen of different things. Went, hang on, if I read this correctly, this is what the MUT3 does, and it did. So, you know, it's just a case of learning all this stuff and working it out. There's an order to do it. You do it in the wrong order, you're back to square one. Because the systems inside Mitsubishi a Mickey Mouse, to be honest with you. Then I don't think it's a battery management system. I consider it more of a monitoring system. It doesn't really balance. It expects to have a fully balanced pack installed, and we're talking balance down to very close tolerances. And so when they charge, all the cells come up equally and all the cells go down equally. So this is where it gets very complicated, and in actual fact we'll probably have to invest in a workbench charging system where we can get the new batteries in, charge them perfectly and keep them as a set of 88 and not separate them so they're all perfectly balanced when they leave and go into the vehicle. But we're slowly getting there. We've had the car on the road. A good early indication was we were getting a 30% charge into the battery and getting 57k range. So if assuming that you get 100% charge in that battery, we're probably getting up close to that 180, 190k range. So it is looking promising. So we're getting there. Every time we make a little inroad, we have a bit of a setback, and we've got another setback today. So we're back to the drawing board. Oh, there we go. I've got to go and reset them.
All right, well, we might leave it there. Are you all right with that, Graham?
I'm fine with that. Yep.
Okay. What I'm going to do is thank all of our speakers and attendees here tonight and people who've joined us on the live stream. If we could all wave goodbye to everyone on the live stream. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next month.